What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video I have done the impossible. We are using ward as an actual defensive mechanic. Stay tuned. Let's tank it. Easy game. Tank it. Easy game. As long as you don't care about Ubers, this is a great build. Just like every other build I make. Tank it. Bang. Call.
Not up to that just yet.
Take it. If I put this build out and everyone, not everyone, if a single person comments, of course it's good, it's lightning strike, I swear to f***ing God, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna delete my YouTube channel. One comment that says that, I'm deleting my YouTube channel. Oh, something stunned me. But like, if you know somebody that knows what they're doing, makes a good lasagna with like sausage in it. All right, here we go, boys. I hope I dodge it. We're gonna go do Cirrus, but first we gotta kill all of his buddies first. It's pretty good. Yeah, I watched the beginning of that video, but I didn't like really get a good view at it. Oh yeah, I've tanked every die beam so far. I'll stay alive and do another one. Just to see it.
You will long for non-existence. Feel the thrill of the void. Resist the assault. Away they go. I'm better. Time to up the stakes. Grasp your mortality tightly. Away they go. Twin terrors.
As a build creator, something I'm always touting is defensive layers. You're not tanky if you have a lot of armor. You're not tanky if you have a lot of evasion. You're not tanky if you have a lot of max res. What makes you tanky is when you combine those layers together to create something that's very difficult for any type of damage to get through. This build takes defensive layering to the next level. We get max evade chance, max spell block, max spell dodge, avoid damage from elusive, block, a huge amount of ward, and some pretty nice recovery. The goal of this build was to try to make ward a primary defensive mechanic, something that is built around, not just a layer on top, but something that is really core to how this build stays alive. So what we've done is we've essentially created a situation where our ward is up almost all the time because we're never getting hit, and then when we do, it recovers really quickly. So the way ward works is when you take a hit of any size, whether it's 1 damage or 1,000,000, your ward gets removed in its entirety. You have an amount of time that it takes for it to recover before it comes back in its entirety as well. It doesn't recharge like Energy Shield or regen like Life. So basically what we've done is we've created a build that very rarely gets hit, And then when it does, it has a huge amount of ward that essentially acts as a life pool. If you put ward on a build that doesn't avoid damage, it's never going to be up when you need it. You're going to take a lot of hits and your ward's pretty much always going to be down. But we don't really take hits ever on this build. So when we do, we always have our ward up. And we'll talk about some of the ways that we layer this ward to make it really, really strong. So let's get into it. So normally I start a build guide by looking at the character in game, but I actually think it'll be a little bit more useful to talk about it in PoB since we have all the numbers here. So the first thing that we get is evade cap. 95% chance. It's very easy to get there with a couple of things like blind and evade attack hits while affected by grates on a Watcher's Eye. 95% evade chance means 1 in every 20 attacks gets through. That's physical attacks, LE attacks, chaos attacks, any sort of attacks get evaded by your evade chance. On top of that, we have avoid from elusive. Now this number is going to be going up and down based on how much elusive effect you have at the time because of the way that elusive degrades over time. So the cap is 34% chance. That gets down to about 25 to 28, and then your Withering Step will restart it. For physical hits, it's a little bit more because we use Replica Mistwall, and we'll get into that. After evasion calculates whether or not you're going to get hit by an attack, which is 1 in 20, let's say that 20th time is selected and you're going to get hit. Now your block chance comes in. We have a 42% chance to block. That means almost half the time of those 1 in 20, we're going to block it. After block, assuming we don't block it, we now have a chance to avoid it from elusive. So it's about 1 in 3-ish for chaos and LE, and it's about 1 in 2 for physical hits. Basically what this means is it takes a lot of attempts for an enemy to actually hit us with an attack. And the reason that's so important, our ward gives us a huge amount of extra effective life when it's up. So if we're not taking hits, our ward is going to be available to us. All right, let's talk about how we avoid spell damage. Replica Mistwall is the core of the spell avoidance of our build. So this gives us 75% chance to block spell damage, which is cap, if you have not blocked recently. For the most part, we're not going to be blocking because we also have capped spell dodge. We get capped spell dodge by getting spell suppression all over the tree and then taking acrobatics. Acrobatics means you need 150% spell suppression, and then that will convert it into 75% spell dodge. This is helped by the fact that we get 40% on our ascendancy, and then we take a bunch on the tree. So 75% chance to avoid a spell hit for starters with dodge. If we don't dodge 1 in 4 times, then our block comes in and we have a 75% chance to block the hit. Once we block, then we lose for 4 seconds that spell block. But we still have our spell dodge as well as our avoid from our elusive. So you pretty much can block 1 hit every 4 seconds. But because we're not getting hit very often, that's up most of the time. Again, on top of that, we have all of our additional ward that acts as our life pool. On the Replica Mistwall as well, we have a 15% chance to avoid physical damage from hits while phasing. We're perma-phasing because we're a raider, so that is just always up, just avoiding physical hits. So when you combine all these things together, you have a very, very small chance of getting hit. On top of this, because we don't have a lot of actual mitigation when a hit does come through, we have our 3600 life and our 1700 ward. We need another way to mitigate those hits that do actually make it through. And the way that we do that is with Kintsugi. This chest gives you 35% less damage taken if you have not been hit recently. We don't get hit very often, therefore this is up most of the time that we take hits. This is like almost double Fortify when this is up. And as many people know, Fortify is one of the strongest defensive mechanics in the game. So all of these things combined mean this character can just pretty much tank everything in the game. There is going to be the odd time where a hit gets through, it rolls a crit, and you just die. So this is not a hardcore viable defensive setup. But for softcore, this is probably the best and easiest access to huge defense that you can get, in my opinion. None of this is very expensive to acquire. You basically just need to be a raider. You need to use the Replica Mistwall, which I think this was 20C. You probably want the Watcher's Eye mod of evade attack hits. That's pretty cheap to make sure that you get to cap. And then you pretty much are done. You just need to get some evasion on gear, which is cheap, and you can make your own ward gear. I crafted this myself because nobody sells ward gear, but I made the helmet and the gloves, which is where most of my ward comes from, for I think 1 divine total worth of crafting items. This build also has perma phasing, which is really nice, so you can always just run through monsters. That's a really nice defensive mechanic. You don't get stuck in a pack. We also have 90% chance to avoid elemental ailments. Now, you very easily could cap this by not running the Dark Ray Vector boots. These are nice. They give you some stuff per frenzy charge. So you'd have to get evasion on your boots, and it would be very easy to get capped for avoid LE ailments. But I just wanted to run these because they're a 1C item. And a lot of the stuff on this build is very, very cheap. Now, I know I'm running a headhunter. You don't need a headhunter in this build. I killed all the endgame bosses while wearing the headhunter. It's a super fast mapper. It just simply doesn't need it, but I wanted to use it because it's the end of the league and I haven't made a single build around it yet. A lot of this gear is really, really cheap. Kintsugi's super cheap. You can get one unlinked for like 10C. Replica Mistwall, this was 20C at the end of the league when nobody's on. Eternal Struggle, this is really cool for the big cull that we get from it and all the stats. This was 5C, 1C boots, and then just rings that have a bunch of res on them. The most expensive piece of gear that I have here is this claw. You can drop the damage on this claw by 20%, and all of a sudden it's a 2 divine item. And this could very easily still kill all bosses in the game, non-Ubers. The Thread of Hope that I pushed in here, I did because it just had some interesting stuff that I could grab from my Lethal Pride. You don't need this. You can just path to these points. You can path to Forces of Nature and then just drop a few things and you'll be fine. The reality is you can put this build together very easily for 20 to 30 divines, and it is going to crush all non-Uber content. The cool thing is you can also put a lot of money into this build. You can get a way better claw than this. You can get substantially better gear. You don't need to use things like the Eternal Struggle, which is just a very budget item. Obviously, Headhunter works really well with Lightning Strike. There are ways to scale this really, really high and get absurd amounts of damage. So I'm not going to go through every single gear piece and every single gem like I do in most videos. We're going to try to cut it down a little bit and just talk about the most important pieces. So you want to try LE Claw, as much LE damage, attack speed, and crit as possible. On our helmet and gloves, you want to get all prefixes that are ward based if you can. Ward and then life would be good too, but I went for as much ward as possible because ward effectively is life for us. As suffixes on your gloves and helmet, you want faster restoration of ward. That makes that ward timer of how quickly it will come back reduced by a significant amount. We have a little over 100% restoration speed. The Eternal Struggle, we got some mana reservation here. 15% call, awesome. This solves so many problems for us. Really cool item. The Replica Mistwall, as we discussed, mandatory. The Kintsugi as well, less damage taken. I would say this is probably mandatory as well. The boots, Dark Ray Vectors are definitely not best in slot. If you want to get total avoid cap for LE ailments of all types, you can just get some on the boots and just go for like a rare pair with Exarch and Eater implicits. The Headhunter is not even a little bit mandatory. I actually did some of the footage that you see at the beginning without the Headhunter on. And I just wore this random Parandus blazon. I have all of my stats and reses covered without the belt, which means, you know, these incredibly high res rings, you don't need. Just get a Stygian here and it solves most of your problems and you can get more damage there instead. As far as the flasks go, pretty self-explanatory. The most important one is the Iron Flask of Rune Shining. What you want to get here is used when you take a savage hit, and then you want increased ward and you want a prefix ideally. I don't have this, but you want your prefix ideally to allow you to consume 30 or less charges on use. That way you'll have 2 charges up so you can use it, and then if you get hit, it'll immediately get used again when you take a savage hit. So the idea is, savage hit comes in, which is 15% of your life, so it uses your ward, it takes some of your life, and then this flask is automatically activated, which means you get all of your ward back, 1700 ward. Super, super strong layer of defense, very underrated. For a build like this that uses ward as defense, this thing is a powerhouse. For our gems, we're using Lightning Strike. You don't have to use Lightning Strike in this build. It's a claw-based Nightblade crit build. You can use really any claw skill use Cobra Lash, you could use Venom Gyre. I have never played with Lightning Strike, so I chose to use it because I think it's going to get nerfed. I've been playing since Breach League, and I've never used Lightning Strike. So here we are trying it out right before maybe the nerf hammer comes for it. Another big important thing for our layers of defense, level 20 cast when damage taken, and Steel Skin. The reason I went for level 20 is because I want, when I take a massive hit, for this Steel Skin to go off. I don't care so much that it has a high uptime, because we're very rarely getting hit. But when we do take that massive hit, you know, maybe it drains all of our ward and most of our life, the Steel Skin comes up, it gives us a second to kind of recover our life and ward back, and it's just a massive, massive defensive layer. We don't get armor on this build because it wouldn't really be useful for us, so we can't use Molten Shell, so next best thing is Steel Skin. On the tree, this massive Thread of Hope is so unnecessary. You don't need it at all. You can just path to these points over here, path to Forces of Nature, and just drop the ones that you can't afford. Lethal Pride, super easy to get a strong one these days. You just use the PoB tool. You can get things like double damage, res, life. I've just got kind of assorted things, some regen, a little bit of stuff everywhere. This is not a super good one, but it's a pretty good one. Intimidate on hit, really, really nice. So that's a really nice jewel to have. Here you can just use any kind of jewel that's useful. Multi, attack speed, corrupted blood, things like that. Watcher's Eye, I would try to get evade attack hits while affected by Grace. I would say that's mandatory to get to your evade cap. And then you can get Precision Multi. Anger Multi is really, really strong. It's actually better than Precision Multi. And just some kind of damage to go along with it if you can afford it. And that is going to wrap up this section. I don't want to spend too much time on this. You can go look at the PoB. You can ask me in the comments. You can come to my Discord. You can ask me questions there. My Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0__. I'm happy to answer questions about the build or review your PoB live on stream. Come check me out. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care.